Good evening and welcome to 60 Minutes. Imagine this, you're in your 30s, working, happily married, couple of great kids. Life seems good. Then you discover you're suffering from an incurable disease, one that could leave you in a wheelchair and even be terminal. You can start taking drugs to stave off the effects, or you can head to Russia for a radical procedure. That's the dilemma which was facing Gold Coast nurse Christy Cruz, who at 35 was told she had multiple sclerosis. Australian doctors refused to give Christy the breakthrough treatment that could halt her decline. But Christy had other ideas.
2, 3.
It's 1 week before D-Day. Christy Cruz is heading to Russia in a desperate bid to halt her multiple sclerosis.
Great one.
It's a radical treatment and she's going to lose all her hair in a heavy-duty dose of chemotherapy.
Oh my God.
So rather than wait for it to happen in Moscow, she's decided to have it all cut off here at home on the Gold Coast. Why are you doing that?
For my kids. The shave today is to get them used to it, to involve them in the process.
Yeah, Keith, do you expect to be shocked today?
I kind of like the look myself, so we'll enjoy it together. Hats, you always look good in a hat.
It may be her own choice, but for Christy, this extreme step is recognition that this is her only hope.
Wow, can't stop rubbing it.
Are you ready to have a look?
Yeah, alright, okay. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You look gorgeous.
You do.
What's making you cry?
I just feel stripped bare.
Yeah.
In just a few more days, Christy will swap the comforts of home in Queensland
I feel nauseous.
for this, a gruelling round of chemotherapy and stem cell treatment in a Russian hospital.
Take a deep breath in.
To treat multiple sclerosis in this way is groundbreaking, and the results can be extraordinary.
You have normal cough, it's usual.
But Christy has been forced to come here because in Australia, the treatment has been deemed by health bureaucrats as experimental.
Oh,
You can do it, you can do it.
it's a wild ride.
Only a couple of years ago, Christy seemed to have it all. She was a fit and healthy 35-year-old, an emergency department nurse. It was all about to change.
I was noticing a flash of heat across my back and I was getting really fatigued. So I had a couple of appointments with the neurologist and he said, yeah, this is confirmed, you've got MS.
Keith, when you heard what the diagnosis was and the prognosis, do you remember that moment in time?
There was just that shock sickness that she's got MS. Christy's got MS, and I don't know what to do.
Come up, we've got to get your shoes. Come on, love. Shouldn't have done that. I have weak left leg and left arm. I am numb on the left side of my face. Just totally numb. I have the sensation of bugs crawling over my head and my shoulders all the time. There are days when I will get up and get my kids to school and come back to bed and fall asleep immediately and be in the deep coma-like sleep.
Multiple sclerosis is a disease that attacks the central nervous system when the protective sheath around the nerve fibres in the brain and spinal cord becomes damaged. Lesions form on the nerve pathways which distort the messages that tell our bodies how to walk, talk, even breathe.
Oh, honey.
There is no cure. For many, it will lead to a life in a wheelchair, and for some, it will be terminal.
Alright, here we go.
But for Christy, with her boys Bodie and Shannon still so little, the most frightening part of MS is the prospect of mental decline.
Have a good day. I think I could handle anything physical. Put me in a wheelchair. But cognitive decline and memory? My kids are young. 3-year-old. I can't have cognitive decline at this time in my life. That's what's made me want to fight so hard. The alternative, accepting it, is not an option for me. It's not an option.
How successful is it?
In most cases, it stops the disease in its tracks. There's no further relapses, no progression of disease.
Dr. Colin Andrews, based in Canberra, is one of the few neurologists in Australia willing to carry out the stem cell treatment that could change Christy's life.
Just a matter of how.
But he isn't allowed to. How dangerous is this treatment?
In the early days, it had a mortality rate of 9%. This is over a decade ago, but now it's down to less than 1%. And given that some people will die from their disease and be severely disabled and maybe in a nursing home, the patients are much freer about taking the risk than the doctors are.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
You want to try and go for a walk?
Yep, let's go.
But many neurologists here disagree with Dr. Andrews and refuse to provide the treatment except as a last resort.
Jeez.
Even though elsewhere it's accepted as halting MS and in very rare cases appears to reverse it.
You don't feel nauseous?
Yes, I do. In Australia, I was told you can't be in a wheelchair. If you get to a wheelchair, you can't have this treatment. You're too disabled. No, I really do need the chair. No, I really do.
Can you go? You want me to?
But you need to spend the next 2 years or 3 years trialling drugs and hope in that time you don't get sick enough to get in a wheelchair. Because if you do, you're out of luck. It was like playing Russian roulette.
Do you feel that by going to Russia you're playing Russian roulette?
No, I have made a very careful decision. I don't think it's Russian roulette at all.
Hey kids, did you know that dragons love tacos? They love beef tacos and chicken tacos.
So tonight, Christy is heading to Russia.
I love you, Bodhi Poo.
Facing the toughest challenges of her life, saying goodbye to her 2 young sons for the next 6 weeks.
Okay, darling. Mummy needs a big cuddle. Mummy's going to Russia, isn't she? You're the boy.
You're right. Let it out.
He's so cheerful and I'm so devastated.
That's a sign that you're just supposed to be cheerful.
And then it's time to go.
What's wrong?
A long and expensive journey into the unknown, and all on her own.
What's your passport number? Read that out to me.
It will cost close to $100,000.
Jeez, you look like you got Parkinson's.
But watching Christy shake uncontrollably, perhaps not a moment too
Where
soon.
you're going, right? Just go do it one day at a time. Just put one foot in front of the other. Do whatever Dr. Federico has on the day for you, and then do the next day. Give me a big hug.
Okay, that's one.
The fear's gone. I don't worry about anything. She's gonna go have treatment and come home. It's not a cure for MS, but it stops it in its tracks. What else can I ask for? I get my life back. That's a pretty good feeling.
Coming up,
It's a scary thing to do.
doctors blast Christy with chemo
Take a deep breath in.
and re-inject her stem cells.
We need 2 to 3 minutes.
It's Christy's Welcome only back to chance. 60 Minutes and the desperate measures Gold Coast mum Christy Cruz has taken to try to cure her multiple sclerosis. Christy spent $100,000 to travel to Russia for breakthrough chemotherapy and stem cell treatment. It's a lot of money and it's a long way to go, but there's a lot riding on it, both for Christy and her young family.
Mummy needs a big cuddle.
Tonight, Christy leaves her children.
Hardest thing I've ever had to do. Harder than my MS diagnosis.
And her husband Keith for the unknown.
Give me a big hug.
Okay, that's one.
36 long hours later, Christy arrives in Russia. But not for her, the grand tour. Christy's entire stay in Moscow will be in a tiny hospital room as she undergoes the radical stem cell treatment she hopes will save her life. Look at the patient. The Moscow resident.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, how are you going?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Good.
You're all hooked up here?
I am all hooked up.
Some of Christy's stem cells have already been taken out to be treated and then frozen. Later they'll be reinfused into her body.
You may feel fatigue, sick.
But first comes the really tough part. 4 days of intensive chemotherapy to kill off the T cells attacking her brain.
My dear patient, we will start.
Dr. Denis Fedorenko has been using this treatment for multiple sclerosis for nearly a decade and is confident it will work for Christy.
All started.
Christy is convinced that this treatment will make her multiple sclerosis free. Is that the case?
Christy has an early stage of multiple sclerosis, so she has a 80% probability to halt multiple sclerosis.
How dangerous is this procedure?
We don't have any mortality cases during the 8 years of our clinical practice with multiple sclerosis, yes.
So no deaths at all associated with this treatment?
Yes. Christy, hello.
Good morning.
We are starting the last day of chemotherapy.
The chemo first few days wasn't rough, and then it started to get a bit yucky. You know, nausea, and I've lost my appetite, which is a bit of a first for me.
Is that about the chemo or is that about the hospital food?
Yeah, Russian food is an acquired taste.
The next step is reinfusion. How are you feeling about that?
I'm a little nervous. It places a great pressure on your body, suddenly reintroducing a flood of cryopreserved stem cells back in.
What has been the most significant improvement that you've seen in patients that you've treated?
The most significant improvement was when we treated a girl. She couldn't walk without a wheelchair, and in 1 week after transplantation she started walking fluently without any additional support.
That's an incredible result.
It's an incredible result.
It's important to emphasise the treatment doesn't work for everyone with MS. You need to be young, preferably under age 40, and in the early stages of the disease. Christy Cruz should be the ideal candidate, but under Australian protocols she's not eligible because she hasn't tried and failed conventional drug treatments. Why are Australian patients forced to go overseas to have this treatment?
Because it's not available in Australia to the extent that it should be. So there's a financial, an emotional and a risk toll. So it should be done here in Australia, in my view.
Dr. Colin Andrews has successfully treated at least half a dozen MS patients in Canberra this way. But now Canberra Hospital, with no explanation, is refusing to allow him to continue. And the way the hospital treated his last patient is nothing short of scandalous.
I had a particularly aggressive form of multiple sclerosis, and I knew that this was my last option.
For 2 years, MS sufferer Lauren Kish begged Canberra Hospital to allow her to have the treatment. They finally agreed and her stem cells were collected and chemotherapy started. Then one of the hospital doctors delivered a bombshell.
That was when he said to us, "I'm sorry, but we're not taking you any further. It's the end of the line." And I said, "But you've got my stem cells. What am I supposed to do now?" And he said, "We'll find another hospital to put them back in." We were like, "What? How could this be happening?"
What were you told about why they were stopping the treatment midway through?
We weren't given any particular reason except that the ethics committee had said no.
I had a really good conversation with him on the phone the other day.
Luckily for Lauren, St Vincent's Hospital in Sydney agreed to reinfuse the stem cells Canberra Hospital had taken out. How would you describe the behaviour of an ethics committee that would pull treatment halfway through as they did to Lauren?
Well, I've never seen something like that before. It's absolutely terrible.
Is there any justification for it?
No, this is established treatment, so I just can't understand the thinking behind it. I can't imagine a doctor doing that.
Lauren's stem cell treatment has stopped the progress of the disease, although sadly her MS had already advanced during the years she was forced to wait. With so many doctors and hospitals refusing to provide the treatment, the only glimmer of hope for patients like Christy Cruz is to head overseas, with all the costs and risks that involves.
Christy, I would like to show you your stem cell. Christy Cruz stem cells.
That's awesome.
So we have to start.
In Moscow, Christy's big day has arrived. Now that the chemo has done its work against the bad T cells, her own healthy stem cells will be reinfused into her body. How are you feeling today? Because it's D-Day, isn't it?
It's a scary thing to do, and it's even scarier when you're in a foreign country.
All by yourself.
Yeah, but you know, this is what I'm here for, and it's what I want.
And even Dr. Denis Fedorenko is anxious. Denis, do you get nervous at this point?
I try to be calm, but I am thinking about patient's health all time. So yes, of course, I am a bit worried. So.
With her immune system suppressed by the chemotherapy, the biggest risk for Christy at this point of the process is deadly infection.
I'm starting to feel a bit short of breath.
A bit difficulty to breathe, yes?
Yeah.
Take a deep breath in. You have normal blood pressure. You are okay.
I know, no pain, just heavy in.
It's normal, it's normal. Take a deep breath in. It's normal. Christy, it will relieve in 2 minutes.
Oh,
You can do it, you can do it.
it's a wild ride.
You have normal,
Weight on my chest.
normal parameters.
It's hard to watch, but it's over in a few minutes.
We have finished.
We're finished?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my congratulations.
Thank you. I was trying to stay calm, but it was scary. My limbs just feel so heavy. It's weird.
So I hope, based on our experience, Christy's symptoms will decrease, but usually it takes place in 6 or 12 months after transplantation.
Come on, honey, Mummy's not feeling good now.
This was Christy before treatment.
Alright, kinky time.
Her left side was numb. Many days she couldn't walk. And so debilitated by fatigue, she could barely care for her 2 boys. And this is Christy 6 months after treatment. Exercising 4 or 5 times a week.
And again, stretch.
Her greatest pleasure is just feeling normal.
Reach out that left side a little bit more.
Do you feel like you have multiple sclerosis?
No, I really don't. All the things that used to remind me every day that I have MS, they're gone. I have no mobility devices anymore, and it really is like night and day. Sometimes I forget how bad it was, because this feels like me again. Yeah, it's fabulous.
So have you seriously put away the wheelchair and
Gone.
the walking frame?
We don't even have them in our house. We don't have them.
But for MS patients like Christy and Lauren and their families, the greatest reward will be if more Australian doctors just look at the evidence and get the message. Medically, what proof have you got that the MS has been halted in some way?
My neurologist rang me and said that I've got less lesions now, and the ones that are there are smaller, and that's a miracle, because they never said that they would take away lesions.
The fact that this is not available to other people with MS in Australia.
I feel really sad, because it did cost me a lot of money, and I did have to go far away, but I was really lucky because I had the resources and the knowledge, and I could get there just out of sheer will. And it just seems like madness that we can't do this in Australia. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
We asked Canberra Hospital for an interview, but they refused, sending us a media release instead, claiming stem cell treatment is, quote, not widely accepted for this use. Well, a quick look at medical journals would show them the treatment is now widely accepted around the world, We'd also have liked to talk to Canberra Hospital's Ethics Committee to ask them just how ethical it was to throw Lauren Kish out of the hospital after they'd already started her treatment. But they ran for cover too. You can find their statement and our questions